You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
Sarah's excited because we're still talking about bikes.
It's
a great event coming up here in St. Louis. We're thrilled to share it with you, along with the wonderful organizations that benefit from this great charity event. And we'll share more with you in just a moment. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting the Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
Joining us today, friends from Lutheran Development Group, St. Louis. We have in studio Chris Shearman. He's founder and executive director of Lutheran Development Group. Chris, welcome back to the Coffee Hour.
Thanks for having me.
I think it's been a couple of years since we had a chance to talk, so
Yes.
Glad to have you back. And also on your team, joining us online, Harry Stevens, Director of Operations for Lutheran Development Group. Harry, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's start with the story of Lutheran Development Group. Who is Lutheran Development Group and who do you serve?
Yeah. Well, we don't have enough time to get into the whole story. But I'll just tell you about what we're doing right now and kind of where we're going. We work primarily in the Dutchtown area of South St. Louis, and we have two different groups that we work with. One is directly with neighbors and community groups in the greater Dutchtown area, and then the other group that we work with is city churches outside of that geography. And the gist of it is that we want every neighborhood to be a neighborhood of opportunity, every neighborhood to be a healthy community where someone who's born there might be able to raise their kids in a healthy neighborhood, when they have their children. So we want that to be true of Dutchtown, as well as every church to be able to help their community, help their neighborhood, live into the idea of being a healthy neighborhood of opportunity.
So what are the needs of those specific areas in St. Louis that you're active in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We kind of just take a step back and look at, what does it mean to have a healthy community?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that means eliminating some negative characteristics, or really supporting or helping to grow some of those positive characteristics. We have both from our own experience, as well as a lot of study. A lot of ink has been spilled on these concepts. So the gist of it is that you want people to be rooted into their community. So you need to eliminate those conditions that really make someone feel like they have to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then so that might be that if there is like elevated crime, or a high like there's a lot of vacant buildings, or that there's a lack of economic opportunity. Those are things that you need to remedy, and that's where we work with partners in Dutchtown to try to help with those conditions. So you want to eliminate those negative conditions. We have a summer youth jobs program, Blight to Bright, that helps to clear vacant lots, keep them mowed down, throw away any trash or debris. That's hiring kids from the community to help make it a better place. Then you work with other partners, like what do you want to do as far as bringing in additional education opportunities. So we worked with Holy Cross and Eagle to bring a charter school into the neighborhood, and then we directly do a lot with affordable housing. So what are those foundational things that we can help with? Where can we work with partners? And then what you're trying to go for is that this is an economically diverse community, that there's all kinds of different people living together and loving their neighbor. So you want people to be rooted in the community and loving their neighbor.
You mentioned a lot in that short amount of time. And just reading up on Lutheran Development Group, one of the programs that you mentioned to me was Blight to Bright, the job opportunities for young people. Tell me more about that and how young people have gotten involved with Blight to Bright and how it's made a difference for the neighborhood and for the young people who had that summer job.
Mm-hmm. That came out of an understanding that, the number of vacant buildings that a kid walks past when they're going to school can affect how well they do in school. Or if a community has like this outward, even if a neighborhood isn't unsafe, even if a neighborhood is safe, to avoid the, double negative there. Even if it's a safe neighborhood, if it feels unsafe, that can affect, a child's performance in school. How the neighborhood presents also will affect how a kid who grows up in that neighborhood views themselves. So, it's kind of low hanging fruit on that. Where's the opportunity? City of St. Louis has a program called St. Louis Youth Jobs, where they can partner with employers. In this situation, we are one of those employers. And City of St. Louis through St. Louis Youth Jobs will provide career training, resume building, sort of basic instruction just on like what's next in life. And then we help to recruit folks from the community to go through that program, and then they get placed with us. And on a given year, we might have like 4 youth or eight youth, whatever just kind of works out. COVID's been tough during that. Fortunately, we're outside, so that reduces the risk quite a bit. But just even the simple things have just been a little bit more challenging. But it's nice because we see how when they're done with a lot, you can go from like having knee-high grass and a dozen tires there to like it just looks uniform. And the theory behind it is that if you have youth from the community doing it, they're learning job skills, but also there's that sense of pride and community. And the Dutchtown area has a beautiful history. It has a lot of pride. But it's got some headwinds that it's fighting against, and we just kind of want to come alongside youth, neighbors, community stakeholders in any way that we can to just make it live up to what is that beautiful neighborhood that it is.
What kind of success stories do you have? Because you've been doing this for a little while now.
Yeah.
What kinds of things have you been able to really see in these neighborhoods that you're working in?
Yeah. So the various neighborhoods we've worked in, Tower Grove East, Fox Park, Graveway Park, Dutchtown, those are the main ones. And each neighborhood was at a different place prior to our involvement. And I think it's important to point out that we are not the only group doing this work. This is heavily dependent on relationships and working with other partners, both faith-based and secular in the community. I guess what's been most transformative, I would say, is probably the Fox Park neighborhood. So if you know South City, Fox Park is right off of Jefferson and just north of Gravois. And apparently, I didn't know it when we started working there, but I had family that went way back. We were renovating 2801 Magnolia, and my dad calls me up, and he's like, "Hey, do you know? I think it's 2814 Magnolia." I'm like, "Yeah, it's like right across the street." Like I was there, I could look at it. It's a gray building. He's like, "Well, apparently that's where your great grandpa Weeman lived." And
cool.
So I like knocked on the door and started talking to people, and like it was fun. But I live just a few blocks away from Fox Park, and I remember when we moved into the neighborhood that Fox Park was not known for good things, like the actual park itself, as well as the neighborhood. And through really good foundational work through like a nonprofit like DeSales, which is a community development group in that area, and a lot of neighborhood leaders, over the course of years and years and probably even decades, it went from a place where the park itself was where you would get drugs to now, like my kids play baseball and soccer there. The neighborhood group. I remember walking around the park with the alderwoman and someone from DeSales, that nonprofit, and we were just brainstorming on like what could be. And one of the things that came out of that is it'd be really great to reactivate this for kids. And from that, and that was just like a throwaway comment. And then from that, this nonprofit employee went off, wrote a grant to like Missouri Foundation for Health, reactivated the park with a soccer league and a baseball league. They have a splash park there now for kids. Like my kids don't want to leave. It's awesome. And to see something that had been given over to illegal activity, and now it's like one of the most beautiful and vibrant places. And then to see where houses that could not be renovated because like it would cost too much and you would be underwater are now being turned into beautiful homes, and you've got this like economically diverse community. And then now there's actually like a church replant that's happening over at Emmaus, which is on Jefferson. And, Jordy Denholm, or Pastor Jordy Denholm, I got to get used to that now. It's officially Pastor Jordy. It's just really cool to see what's happening. So Fox Park is that example of it's come a long way very quickly. And what's really awesome is that we're seeing a lot of those same things bubbling up in Gravely Park and in Dutchtown. But if you kind of looked at the whole spectrum of where it's at, it's not as far down that path, but it's neat to see the momentum and the direction that it's going.
And I can imagine with so much community involvement as well, as you mentioned, with like things like Blight to Bright, or just your family being involved and enjoying the park, and really having some sense of ownership that this is our community, this is where we live. That when there's that sense of community and ownership, there's more of an inclination to take care of those things so that it doesn't go back to a place of, like you mentioned, illegal activity, or like even the vacant lots that the kids were cleaning up. I would imagine if you spent a whole day cleaning up a vacant lot, getting rid of the weeds and the tires and things like that, and you saw someone throwing trash in it or something like that, you're going to say something. If you spent a whole day doing that as a teenager and you see someone making a mess of it, you're probably going to say something because you invested so much time in it. So it's really neat to see that reinvestment in the community. Tell me more about the motivation for what you do at Lutheran Development Group.
Yeah. I mean, the simple answer is the Sunday school answer. It's Jesus, but everyone's going to say that. But that's also the truth behind it. Before Lutheran Development Group, I had worked for a for-profit developer, learned a lot, fresh out of college. And I had just seen these buildings crumbling and thought, that just doesn't seem right. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it's just like there was something different about how things used to be made. That there was more of a connection between the building and the street and the people. And I wanted there to be just to be part of like kind of rebuilding that. But that also kind of happened along the same time I got really involved with my church, and it was neat to see like my understanding of how community develops and my faith growing kind of all at the same time, and started to see just how buildings and places and people all come together. And buildings are part of what brings people together, relationships. And I think that public places, parks, they all bring people together. And our faith is heavily relational. And we need to really pay close attention to what are those other factors that can either bring us together or pull us apart. And the built environment's part of that. So it really comes down to, we love God. We've been saved. So now what? And I want to walk in the model of Christ. And what does he say to do? Love your neighbor. And that should be a willing, sacrificial love. It should just naturally come out of you. And so I find myself grateful that I was placed in a place where I know a lot of neighbors, and that it's an environment that is built to connect people, because that's what small towns and urban environments are built for, connection. But then I've had enough of a sort of education on, okay, what levers can we pull on to make this healthier? And I'm just grateful that there's an outlet to take kind of my faith, my education, and then to use it to love my neighbor.
We're learning about Lutheran Development Group today, and in just a moment, we're going to share more about the upcoming great event here in St. Louis. We shared a little bit on Friday about the Cycle for the City. Harry's going to share more with us about that in just a moment here on the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
You're a miracle. You know that, right? a living, breathing, one-of-a-kind miracle. You were created to stand apart, to share your gifts in the service of others, to make an uncommon impact in a common world. And at Concordia University, it's our mission to help you do that, to live uncommon. To learn more about Concordia, go to cuw.edu.
Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
Today we're learning about Lutheran Development Group in St. Louis and the upcoming event that involves bicycles.
Yay.
So Sarah's really excited.
I am.
And all your bike friends.
Yep.
And I'm excited to cheer people on for the Cycle for the City. And joining us in studio, Chris Shearman. He's founder and executive director for Lutheran Development Group. And online with us, Harry Stevens, director of operations for Lutheran Development Group. Now, Harry, it's my understanding that you have been part of the brains behind the Cycle for the City. Tell us about this event. Why is this Cycle for the City event important to you?
I don't know how much of the brains I'll take credit for, but no, Cycle for the City is, as a concept, has been something that's been placed on my heart for years and years and years now. The idea of coming together as a cyclist, as a cycling community in fellowship, and helping the places where we are, I think is so important and something that often gets overlooked by cyclists and cycling groups. I've been riding at various different levels for years now, probably for about a decade, as a commuter, as an amateur rider, for fun, casually with teams, etc. And I've been to race events, I've been to charity events, I've been to, just calling up some friends and heading out for a 60-mile bike ride type of event. And they've all been great. And I love the community that comes from cycling and the community that you get when you're all out on the road together. But one of the things that's always felt like a gap for me is the connection between that community and the communities where we live and the communities where that we rely on, the community of people around us. And so Cycle for the City is I'll say the end result, or is the next step, I should say, in that of trying to help create an opportunity to get that community together, but then also for a purpose, for the purpose of supporting the community, of enhancing the community. So the Cycle for the City bike ride this year is on September 6th, so coming up fairly soon, in about a month, and has two different ride lengths. So we've got a 14-mile ride length and a 34-mile ride length. And they've been selected specifically to highlight and showcase both St. Louis City and St. Louis County, and highlight some of the great things and then some of the things that we could do better. And one of the great things that we're also trying to highlight is the great bike paths that we have here in St. Louis. And so a lot of the ride is actually going to be on bike path, both Grants Trail and the River to Pear Greenway. So it's serving multiple functions all at the same time, but it's certainly something that's been, like I said, on my heart for quite some time now. And it's been really awesome to be able to see it realized and have some really great partners in not just my colleagues here at Lutheran Development Group, but at Humanitri and at Christian Friends of New Americans, who are coming alongside to help make this real and make it come together.
Yeah, the bike community is something that is a pretty incredible thing. If you're not in the cycling community, it's nice to have a fellow cyclist on the coffee hour today. Yeah. But this cycling community really can band together and do some pretty great things. So this is a very exciting thing for me as a cyclist as well, to be able to promote this and to be a part of this event to showcase those things that you're talking about. Can you talk a little bit more about the neighborhoods that the ride will go through and some of the things that people will actually be able to see and experience during this ride?
Yeah, so we're going straight down Broadway, so South Broadway, leaving from Benton Park. So we're starting in starting just south of Grafway Park, and then moving south. And then we actually end up in South County. And so there's a whole host of different municipalities in South County that we're also going to be going through, depending on which ride you choose, right? And of course, those options are there based off of sort of, when I say your skill level, really how much pain you want to inflict on yourself in a given day and how far you feel like going. So they're going through different neighborhoods in South City, down Broadway, and then again, down through parts of South County, through Crestwood, Kirkwood, Maplewood. Sorry, I can't remember all of them. I think I've got 9 different municipalities we're going through, if I remember correctly, and multiple different communities. So, but it's a great little route, and it goes through multiple different parks, multiple different parts of the city. So, definitely an interesting ride. Nothing else.
Tell us about, now we've talked about the folks who are cycling for the event. We'll give some more registration information, but tell us about the other people that it takes to make this event happen coming up on Monday, September 6th. So just about a month away, Labor Day. So tell us about the folks volunteers that you could use for the Cycle for the City event.
Yeah, so we have a lot of needs in the volunteers. So I'll start there, and then I'll work my way backwards to your broader question of what it takes to actually pull this together. So we do have volunteers needed the day of the event, primarily to help man and support the riders who are out on the course. So, riders who get out there, they're having a great time. We do have rest stations that are set up throughout the course. And at those rest stations, it's good to have volunteers to help the riders get water, help make sure they get snacks, get the food, the nutrition that they need. And frankly, making sure that they're helping to get the break that they need sometimes in the middle of the ride. We pushed the ride to September so we wouldn't be in the heat of summer, but it's St. Louis. It can still get hot in September, so we'll see. And it's important that everyone stays safe, and the volunteers are there to really help make sure that everyone's both having a good time, but also staying safe. So there's definitely a need for volunteers there. And then also the need for a few volunteers just to help make sure the riders go to the right place. One of the things that we have is going through all these different communities. There are some places where it's a little tricky to know exactly how you're going to cross that road. The road kind of jogs in a strange way, and things like that. So there's a need for riders to help cheer on volunteers to help cheer on the riders and make sure they're going in the right direction. We'll of course have signs up and everything as well for that. So that's the immediate need of the day of. In terms of preparation for the event, there's just all sorts of different needs and all sorts of different support that we've been using and frankly will continue to need, in particular around communications and marketing and just being able to get the word out. I've spent myself quite a bit of time, more time than I care to admit, frankly, trying to deal with things like, making sure we've got the right insurance and making sure we've got porta potties and making sure we have the right types of permitting for each different municipality that we're going through. All of those things. And some of that just takes time. But then there's been a whole host of people, primarily from the organizations, from Lutheran Development Group, Humanitri, and Christian Friends of New Americans, that have been really helping with, let's just get the word out. What's the network that I have? Who am I going to talk to speak this up, to get the word out, and really help us get more riders in? I mean, part of the fun of these events is getting just riders in and being able to ride alongside people. So making sure that we're getting the word out to as many riders as possible. So it's been a huge team effort from all of the organizations, and it will continue to be a team effort as we build out. We're partnering as well with the Epiphany congregation down in South City. And we're going to be using their facility both as a rest stop, but then also as a basically training center for the volunteers. And for some of the other event support. So, we've got some partnerships we're building out as well, and we're getting support from that congregation. We're getting support from, frankly, the Christian community, both as sponsors and as people who are willing to come and speak up. So it's been really, frankly, it's been really heartwarming to see everyone really come together, band together to help make this thing happen. It's a dream that I had, and it probably would have stayed a dream if had I not had that help and not had that support.
It does take a large group of people to put on an event like this, especially a cycling event that goes through, like you mentioned, several municipalities who all have different rules and regulations for what it takes to bring a group of cyclists through on the streets. So that is wonderful that you're able to do all of this work so that this can be a successful bike ride. I'm really looking forward to it. How do we register? Tell us about the registration information, all of those details.
So registration, there's a button on our website, and our website is cycleforthecity.org. No spaces, nothing, just cycleforthecity.org. And there's a registration button right there that takes you to the registration page. You can also find more information on both the organizations that are helping to make this happen and will be receiving the funds, as well as our sponsors. And then, of course, if you're able to do donations or volunteer, there's information on that there as well.
The organizations participating and benefiting from this, certainly Lutheran Development Group, as well as Humanitri and Christian Friends of New Americans, all wonderful organizations here in St. Louis, serving our neighbors in very generous ways. And we're so grateful for the great work that all three of you do, and really excited for this upcoming event. It's been a lot of fun learning from both of you about Lutheran Development Group and learning about the Cycle for the City event. I'm just really glad we get to share it. Hopefully we'll get to share Christian Friends with New Americans with you very soon on another episode of the Coffee Hour. Our guest today, Chris Shearman, founder and executive director of Lutheran Development Group here in St. Louis. Chris, thanks so much for being our guest.
Glad to be here.
And Harry Stevens, director of operations for Lutheran Development Group. Harry, thanks so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit kfuo.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@kfuo.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.